friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk, I'm talking about eggs, but it's not just about eggs. It's about any kind of food that you can get your hands on for a good price or that you grow, raise, whatever. And the importance of getting these things put up right now. And I bring up the eggs because, not only do I have a lot of eggs preserved in two different ways, and have my own chickens that give me fresh eggs. I recently heard that our one grocery store that we have here in Forks is sold out of eggs. And so people around the area who have their own chickens have been selling their eggs to those who need them. And I already have my regulars, and this is the time of year my chickens are slowing way down. Half of them are molting at the time I'm shooting this video, so my egg production is at half right now. So it won't be long before I won't have any to sell. But if you got your own chickens, that's another reason why you should be preserving your excess eggs and not selling all of them. You're going to need some for yourself. Again, just so you understand, this can apply to anything. I'm just using this as an example because of that. So a lot of times people just think people who put up food are crazy. But I know this egg shortage is not the only shortage we've been seeing around the world. There's meat shortages and grain shortages and this shortage and that shortage. And this is why people like us do what we do and why we've been doing it for years. Though most of it is for the everyday things. For example, the eggs. We put up our excess eggs to get us through the downtime during the year where we allow the chickens to take their natural rest instead of putting a light in their coop and forcing them to lay year round. I believe it's healthier and more natural for them to lay as they were created. So there's that time of the year. They need that break. It's important to them. So we put up eggs for that. We put up food in general or have off-grid power sources and fuel and many other things and pay ahead on certain other bills for a reason. And part of it is just to get us through any hard time that arises in our own personal lives. But the other part is for when things like this happen suddenly and unexpectedly, you go down to the store, there's no eggs, there's no milk, there's no bread for many reasons. I know in our area before, we've had times where the roads, because we're just a small remote town that is right on the highway, and if the highway gets blocked for any reason on either side, which has happened on both sides at the same time, then no trucks are coming through to bring groceries to the store. If the groceries aren't in the store and we don't have them in our own food storage, then we have to go without until the trucks can get through again. If that ever happens, who knows what kind of natural disaster or anything that can happen that can prevent trucks from getting through. So one year it was a blizzard. We don't get blizzards here very much. In fact, some years we don't get snow at all because of where we live, close to a rainforest. But because we already live in a very wet area, last year we had some major flooding that washed out the road on either side of us. We were already prepared. We already had what we needed on hand. We did not have to depend on the local store to keep us in our normal day-to-day lifestyle, like having eggs, milk, bread, and so on. For us, we don't buy bread, we buy the things to make bread. So I make our own breads. So I keep lots of flours and grains to make flour on hand for that very purpose. So life doesn't change for us when we can't get what we need at the store because we're already ready to go. So for milk, for instance, let's say if you have dairy cows, you can can that milk, you can dehydrate that milk. Yes, you can do it yourself with a dehydrator. You do not have to have a freeze dryer to dehydrate eggs or milk or meat. I'm just saying that for people who can't afford to run out and buy a freeze dryer. All these eggs right here, I have 6 jars like this of eggs from our own chickens. And I think there's about 3 dozen eggs per jar. So I all dehydrated, and this is the smaller jar I'm currently working through, which I'm not working through very fast because I'm still using the eggs that are coming in fresh from our chickens until that stops. And then these are eggs that I have frozen, and these are all from last year, and these are great for making mayonnaise. But I'm going to start, because they've already been in there for a year, I'm going to go ahead and start working through these real soon so I can make more room in the freezer, and then I'm only going to keep a certain amount in there because I prefer the dehydrating better. The freezing is definitely good, especially for making mayonnaise. Like I said, I found it the best. Where the dehydrated doesn't work well for making mayonnaise, the dehydrated does do good for anything else I've tried it in so far, which includes making a sweetbread, pancakes, scrambled eggs, omelets, or scramblers, I should say. I don't make omelets, I make scramblers. And they're great. If you do it at the right temperature and don't overcook them and keep them raw, you can have some pretty delicious eggs just like that. I've had people that told me that when they scrambled and cooked the eggs first and then dehydrated, or dehydrated at a higher temperature than I do, they didn't turn out as good. They were too gritty and the flavor wasn't the same. I'll be linking down below to the video I did on dehydrating eggs and how I do it, the temperatures I use, and so on, and also talk about the ways I've used it and how easy they are to use. And I also have one that's part of a this and that where I was dehydrating milk. So there's a reason why I don't dehydrate milk, and that's because for us to get fresh milk here, it's hard to get a hold of. And when we can get a good organic milk, it's very expensive already. So I don't want to put more expense and time into dehydrating it when I can put my time and expense into other things. So I buy dehydrated milk, but I did try it with whole milk because that's all we use. We don't use any of that fat-free, low-fat junk. Whole milk only, and it was perfect. It turned out just as good, if not better, than the high quality organic milk that I bought, the dehydrated milk, the milk powder, the whole milk powder. So I've been getting, and for those who wonder, I have a few different brands I've got my milk from. I've got it from Azure Standard. I have both the A2 and the regular whole milk. I have, it's all organic. I have Prescribed for Life organic milk, but it's gone up quite a bit in price. They all have though. And I also have the Meyenberg goat milk, which I reserved specifically for the baby. As if you saw my video about formulas, I'm going to link that down below, and I'm going to keep it on hand for that very purpose. Not for us to use, but in case anyone can't nurse their own child, especially within our own family, I have something that can work for those people. And I'm looking mostly at family, just like with my daughter-in-law, the story there. So if you're interested, go see that video I'll link to down below. But then the other milks are just for us. So just to have on hand. And I've worked through a lot of it to keep practicing with it, so I know how to use it. I know what it works great in. And honestly, the higher quality ones, like the organic ones, as long as they're a whole milk, I actually prefer, I'm not a milk drinker. I've never cared to drink milk. But if I'm going to, I would actually prefer those over fresh milk for some reason. That's just me. It's kind of crazy, but I like it. So I don't like the non-fat junk that my mom used to buy back in the day, but the whole milk, as long as it's a good quality, is actually pretty good. But you can dehydrate it yourself without any preservatives added, anything added to it, just a good organic milk, and it turns out just as good, if not better. And that way you can have something that will have a pretty much indefinite shelf life as long as you vacuum seal it. Some things don't need vacuum sealing, but for the eggs, the milk, and others, I highly recommend vacuum sealing it. And since it's a powder, as I talk about in that video, you do want to put some kind of barrier over the top of your jar before you vacuum seal it. So if you're curious how I did that, again, go check out that video and also the one on the milk powder. I've also dehydrated cheese and made cheese powder that I can use in many things. And this often gets added to the egg powder when I'm making eggs for Patrick in the morning, whether it be a regular scrambler or just a scrambled eggs with a little bit of cheese in it. I use that cheese powder. It's easy to do, and I have a video on that as well. So this is why we do these things, because you never know when you're going to go to the store and that food is not there, or it's so overpriced you just cannot afford to buy it, because we've seen this high inflation. So by having food storage of any kind, whatever it is, even if you're vegan, you can just scratch all this stuff out and fill it in with whatever it is that you eat on a regular basis. Having that stuff put up in food storage, or a way to grow it for yourself. Even if you grow it for yourself, you're still going to have to store some to get you through the low months where those things aren't growing. This is why you do that, because you're hedging against inflation. So you're getting tomorrow's food at today's prices, or yesterday's prices, or even better than that, depending on where you're getting it, if you're growing it yourself, if you're bartering for it, whatever it may be. So I want to get this message out here, not like I've never talked about this stuff before, but since I had like a real life local experience I can share with you, I wanted to get that out there. This no eggs in the store business doesn't affect us one bit. We're covered, both with our chickens at this time still putting out fresh eggs, as well as the eggs, the many dozen eggs I've put up. I have far more. I have enough eggs put up to get us through a couple of winters, 2 or 3 winters as it is right now. Chances are I won't work through much of this through the winter when the chickens aren't laying. And then I have access, even though our chickens, especially our buff Orpingtons, are getting old, when those chickens die, or we go ahead and butcher them because they're right at the end of their life, I don't have to worry about if chicks are not available at our local nursery, which is where I normally get them. I have friends that have roosters and hens instead of just like us. We don't have a rooster because of where we live. We just have hens. I know where I can get chicks from. I can barter and get some new chicks to repopulate my flock. So I'm always thinking ahead on these things, and this is very important now more than ever. And please, if you haven't seen any of my videos on how to get started, even though it seems like it doesn't matter if you live in an apartment, it doesn't matter if you live in a climate where you can't grow much of anything, there's something you can do. And so I've been putting out more videos about this. I'll link to a couple of them down below, and probably about 3 different ones that I'll link to. So please check those out and just figure out and just start taking the steps needed to get yourself in a better position to be ready for these things that are happening right now and have been happening. All right, any tips or ideas you would like to throw in comments down below, please do so. It's always good to have the interaction for everybody to read and learn from each other, because everybody's going to have their own personal experiences that add so much. I'm only going to have so much knowledge and so much experience, but when we compile everything together, that's a lot of experience. That's a lot of knowledge that we can glean from each other. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.